If I tell you that Pontius Pilate regretted his role in the death of Jesus long after the crucifixion, what would you say? Did you know that Pilate allegedly wrote a letter to the Roman Emperor Tiberius detailing the life, miracles, trial, crucifixion, and astonishingly, the resurrection of Jesus? Yes, Pilate, the man who sentenced Jesus to death, discussed his resurrection in a letter to the emperor. But what exactly did this letter say? What could Pilate have written about the resurrection of the Son of God? Even more astonishing, this letter contains incredible details about Jesus' appearance, things not even mentioned in the Gospels. This episode will explore the content of Pilate's letter and what it reveals about Jesus. I invite you to join me as we read sections of the letter Pontius Pilate wrote to Caesar about Jesus Christ. Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar the Emperor, greetings. In these days there has appeared a man of great virtue, named Jesus Christ, who is still living among us and is recognized by the Gentiles as a prophet of truth. Though his own disciples call him the Son of God, he has raised the dead and healed all manner of diseases. He is a man of tall stature, with a countenance that evokes both love and fear in those who behold him. His hair is chestnut-colored, straight to his ears, and then curls and waves down his shoulders. In the center of his head is a parting, following the manner of the Nazarites. His forehead is smooth, and his face without spot or wrinkle, radiating with a gentle red hue. His nose and mouth are perfectly formed. His beard is thick, the same color as his hair, and forked at the chin, though not overly long. His eyes are gray, clear, and penetrating. His hands and arms are perfectly formed and a delight to behold. Though he is a man of great beauty, there is a serenity about him. He speaks with authority but is also calm, modest, and wise. He is feared for his power, yet loved for his gentleness. It has not been recorded that anyone has seen him laugh, but many have seen him weep. In his presence there is an overwhelming sense of awe. He is not just any man, but one whose beauty and presence surpass all others. Pilate's description of Jesus is incredibly detailed and vivid, far beyond what we are told in the Gospels. At that time, there were no means of capturing a person's likeness, so careful attention was given to describing individuals of importance. Pilate's description of Jesus would have made him easily recognizable to anyone reading the letter or hearing reports about him. The letter goes on to describe the events leading up to the crucifixion. The chief priests, moved by envy, sought to take his life. They brought him before me, accompanied by one of his own disciples, Judas Iscariot, who had betrayed him. When questioned, Jesus responded with a calmness and humility that I have never seen before. His answers were measured, yet filled with eloquence and grace. I asked him what his faith was, and he replied, "O Caesar, I am a king, but my kingdom is not of this world." When I asked if he was a god, he answered, "You say it. I am the truth and the life. I am the good shepherd, the door to salvation." The chief priests, unable to bear his words, demanded that I crucify him. Despite my misgivings, I allowed them to proceed according to their law. At the very hour he was crucified, darkness fell over the entire world. The sun was darkened at midday, the stars appeared in the sky, and the moon, as if turned to blood, failed to give light. The dead arose from their graves and appeared to many. In that moment my mind was greatly troubled, and I hurried to take water and wash my hands, proclaiming myself innocent of the blood of this just man. Pilate's account of these supernatural events surrounding Jesus' death aligns closely with the Gospel accounts. Darkness fell over the earth, the dead rose from their graves, and the heavens themselves seemed to mourn. These extraordinary events left Pilate so disturbed that he symbolically washed his hands of the matter, as described in the Gospels. But here we see it through his own words, giving us a unique insight into his perspective. The letter continues, providing context on the political difficulties Pilate faced as governor of Judea. Recent events in my province have been so remarkable that I felt compelled to report them. The gods no longer seemed favorable to us, and I almost cursed the day I succeeded Valerius Gratus as governor of Judea. Jerusalem is the most difficult city to govern, and the people are restless and prone to rebellion. With only a small contingent of soldiers and a single centurion at my disposal, I lived in constant fear of insurrection. I requested reinforcements from the prefect of Syria, but he informed me that he had barely enough troops to defend his own province. It seems that the empire has overextended itself in its thirst for conquest, and I fear this will be our undoing. Pilate's reflections on his role as governor reveal the immense pressure he was under during his time in Judea. The instability in Jerusalem, the lack of military resources, and the constant threat of rebellion weighed heavily on him. His decisions regarding Jesus, particularly his trial and crucifixion, were undoubtedly influenced by these challenges. Pilate feared that denying the demands of the Jewish leaders could lead to unrest, and with limited troops at his disposal, he likely felt he had no choice but to comply. The letter then shifts to Pilate's personal encounter with Jesus. Among the many rumors I heard, one particularly caught my attention. A young man in Galilee was said to be preaching a new law in the name of the gods who had sent him. Initially, I feared he might stir the people against the Romans, but I soon realized my fears were unfounded. Jesus of Nazareth spoke as a friend to the Romans rather than as an adversary. One day, while passing through the streets of Siloam, I saw a large crowd gathered around a young man who stood in the center, calmly addressing them. His golden-colored hair and beard gave him a heavenly appearance, and he radiated a peace and serenity unlike anything I had ever seen. He appeared to be about 30 years old, and I have never encountered a more striking or peaceful figure. This passage illustrates the profound impression Jesus left on Pilate. Even though Pilate was a Roman governor, Jesus' presence and teaching struck him deeply. Pilate describes Jesus as having an almost otherworldly appearance and demeanor, reinforcing the idea that Jesus stood apart from those around him, not just physically but spiritually. Okay, let's stop to comment on this as well, because I believe this is the only recorded explanation of Jesus' appearance in all historical documents. This particular interest is the description of him as having golden-colored hair and a beard. In the earlier version of the letter we read, it spoke of Jesus having chestnut-colored hair. Same thing. However, the inclusion of this detail raises questions about its authenticity. Was it an addition made by later scribes copying the document? Or did Jesus indeed have lighter colored hair and a beard compared to his contemporaries? There are those who believe this is an add-on by those who copied this document over the years, but we don't know for sure. It's certainly intriguing. Personally, it does really matter now. Back to the Pilate report. Unwilling to interrupt him by my presence, I continued my walk but signaled to my secretary to join the group and listen. My secretary's name was Menelaus. He was the grandson of the chief of the conspirators who encamped in Etruria, awaiting Catiline. Menelaus was an ancient inhabitant of Judea and well acquainted with the Hebrew language. He was devoted to me and worthy of my confidence. On entering the praetorium, I found Menelaus, who related to me the words that Jesus had pronounced at Siloam. Never have I heard in the Pedo or in the works of the philosophers anything that can compare to the maxims of Jesus. One of the rebellious Jews so numerous in Jerusalem, having asked him if it was lawful to give tribute to Caesar, Jesus replied, "Render unto Caesar the things which belong to Caesar, and unto God the things that are God's." It was on account of the wisdom of this saying that I granted so much liberty to the Nazarene, for it was in my power to have him arrested and exiled to Pontus. But this would have been contrary to the justice that has always characterized the Romans. The man was neither seditious nor rebellious. I extended to him my protection. Unknown perhaps to himself, he was at liberty to act, to speak, to assemble and address the people, and to choose disciples unrestrained by any Paparian mandate. But this unlimited freedom granted to Jesus provoked the Jews, not the poor, but the rich and powerful. It is true that Jesus was severe on the latter, and this was a political reason, in my opinion, not to control the liberty of the Nazarene. Scribes and Pharisees, he would say to them, "You are a race of vipers. You resemble painted sepulchres." At other times, he would sneer at the proud alms of the publican, telling him that the mite of the poor widow is more precious in the sight of God. New complaints were daily made at the praetorium against the insolence of Jesus. I was even informed that some misfortune would befall him, that it would not be the first time that Jerusalem had stoned those who called themselves prophets, and that if the praetorium refused justice, an appeal would be made to Caesar. However, my conduct was approved by the Senate, and I was promised a reinforcement after the termination of the Parthian War. Being too weak to suppress this addition, I resolved upon adopting a measure that promised to establish the tranquility of the city without subjecting the praetorium to humiliating concessions. Dear viewers, I hope you have been listening carefully. Pilate knew all about Jesus for a long time, but he allowed him his freedom to preach and to move about because he saw no rebellious spirit in him. In spite of the pressure from the then Jewish religious leaders, he did not find any reason to prosecute Jesus. Well, until it became expedient for him. It was only when he feared an uprising from the Jews and knowing he did not have the military resources to assert control that he sacrificed Jesus. He gave Jesus up for the peace of Jerusalem. That seems poignant, does it not? Given what we know of the mission of Jesus. In any case, Pilate hesitated to crucify Jesus, opting instead to hand him over to quell the political unrest of the time and prevent potential uprisings. Clearly, Pilate was an opportunist. He only cared for his power and authority. He may have washed his hands many times, but the blood of the innocent will linger forever. Yet we are glad that he left this message for us. Now we know from a documentary evidentiary point that Jesus indeed lived and was crucified. Before we end this episode, let's look at one more piece of evidence about Jesus from Pilate. Let us look at what has become known as the Pilate Stone. What does the Pilate Stone say about Jesus' crucifixion? The Pilate Stone, also known as the Pilate Inscription, is an ancient artifact discovered near Caesarea Maritima in Israel. It is a dedicatory inscription on a limestone block. It is significant because it provides archaeological evidence of the existence of Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea, who is mentioned in the New Testament accounts of Jesus' trial and crucifixion. We have been reading the letter of Pilate to Caesar, but what is the evidence that Pilate existed? Well, this artifact, the Pilate Stone, proves that Pontius Pilate was flesh and blood and existed during the time of Jesus. The inscription on the Pilate Stone reads, "To the divine Augusti this Tiberium, Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea." Roman leaders tend to see themselves as gods, hence the moniker to the divine Augusti. Today, we know that Caesarea Maritima is located along the Mediterranean coast of Israel. It was a significant ancient city and administrative center during Roman times. The Pilate Stone was found reused in the staircase leading up to a theater at the site. It was identified by archaeologists due to the Latin inscription carved into the limestone block. From the analysis above, it is clear that both the letter of Pontius Pilate and the Pilate Stone are vital in confirming not only the existence of Pilate as a historical figure, but also in reinforcing the biblical narrative surrounding the life and crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Pilate's detailed descriptions of Jesus, especially those regarding his physical appearance, provide a unique perspective that complements the Gospels. The accounts of Pilate reveal his internal conflict during the trial of Jesus, showing his hesitation in condemning an innocent man but ultimately giving in to political pressure to maintain control over Jerusalem. Reflecting on these details, it is amazing to think that even a Roman governor like Pilate recognized the significance of Jesus, albeit under difficult circumstances. The detailed description of Jesus' demeanor and miracles, paired with the events leading to his crucifixion, highlight how extraordinary he was, even to those outside of his immediate circle. Pilate's personal account and the stone inscription remind us that Jesus' influence transcended religious boundaries, affecting the political and social structures of the time. This historical context not only reinforces the authenticity of the biblical story, but also invites us to consider the gravity of the events that transpired. It shows how a single moment in history can ripple through time, impacting countless lives and leaving an indelible mark on humanity. If you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more content on biblical history. Also, feel free to share your thoughts about Pilate's letter in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and God bless you.